is up? My name is Aaliyah. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to another video. So today we're going to be talking about the 24 books I want to read in 2024. So I have a list of books in no particular order that I'd really like to read in the new year. A lot of these are ones from authors I've read before, or series that I want to finish up, or new 2024 releases I'm really excited about. So without any further ado, let's get into the books. So the first one I really want to read in 2024 is The Brides at High Hill by Nhi Vo. So this is book 5 in the Singing Hills cycle series, and this is a new novella that's coming out in 2024. And we're following the cleric Chi, and it's a gothic mystery involving a crumbling estate, a mysterious bride, and a very murderous teapot. And apparently the cleric Chi is accompanying a young bride to her wedding, and the wedding is at this really creepy crumbling estate, and there's some sort of like mystery that they have to solve, and it looks really, really good. I'm really excited about this. I've been reading one of these novellas each year as they've been coming out, and I've been really, really enjoying that, so I want to get to this one. And then the next few books on my list are ones that are all part of the same series, so I really want to finish the Stay a Spell series by Juliet Cross in 2024. So this is one I've been reading towards the end of 2023 and really, really enjoying. It's a paranormal romance series, and it's following this family of sisters, and each book is following a different sister, and they all have romances with these different like magical creatures. So some of them are werewolves, and some of the guys are vampires, and I think there's also some guys who are Grimms. They're like Grim Reapers, and it's set in this like magical world, and there's this like magic bar that they go to, and there's like humans in this world, and there's all these different creatures, and they kind of have this like supernatural underground stuff that they do, and there's this whole coven of witches, and it's really, really cool, and I'm really excited to get to this. I think I have like 5 more books in this series that I want to get to this year, and I'm really, really excited. I think it's going to be wonderful. So far this is like a 5-star series for me, so I'm really excited to continue on with that in the new year. And then the next one I want to read is also by Juliet Cross, and it's her new 2024 release called The Wraith King, and this one is about Fae, I believe. And so we're following these 2 different groups of Fae, and there's this war going on between the Light Fae and the Dark Fae, and so the king of the Dark Fae has seen this prophecy that if he gets the princess of the Light Fae, it will like help him achieve his goals. And so he basically says, I'm not going to stop this war unless you give me the princess of the Light Fae. And so she kind of like has to surrender herself to him so that they will end the war, and the romance kind of like goes from there, and it looks really, really cool. I love this cover, and Juliet Cross is an incredible writer. She writes really, really good steamy scenes and banter, and I'm really excited to see what happens with her new series. And then the next one I want to get to in 2024 is called Bright Young Women, and this is one that I've been seeing all of a sudden popping up on BookTube quite a bit, and it was on a lot of people's best books of 2023 lists, and I think it's about this like it's kind of this retelling of the story of a serial killer that was from Seattle, and this is a fiction story, and we're following a couple different women, and one of them is in Florida in this sorority, and the serial killer attacks this sorority and kills some of the women there, and then he also attacks this other woman's friend in Seattle, and so the 2 women kind of come together to try and like figure out who the serial killer is and like get revenge on him for what he did to their friends. Revenge! And it sounds really, really good. I also heard this quote, I saw it on Goodreads, I think, in a review, and it looked really, really good. Hold on, let me see if I can find it. Okay, so the quote says, "They will call you hysterical no matter how much dignity you have, so you might as well do whatever the hell you want." And I saw that quote in somebody's Goodreads review for this book, and I was like, I have to read it and have a discussion. And I think it's kind of a retelling of like Ted Bundy and his crimes, and so I thought that sounded really interesting. It's also kind of giving like Promising Young Women energy, and so I'm excited to get to that and just see what it's all about. And then the next one I want to pick up is the new one from Riley Sager. So I read his 2023 release, and it was the first one from him I'd ever read, and I really enjoyed it actually. So I want to pick up his next book. I'm kind of going into this blind because I don't really want to know what it's about too much, but I think it's more of like a domestic family sort of mystery thriller story. And then the next one I want to get to is Silver Under Nightfall by Rin Chupeco. So this is one that's been on my TBR for a really long time, and I just really need to push myself to read it this year. And I think it's about these two different warring groups of vampires, and it's set in this high fantasy world, and it's a really, really chunky fantasy book, which is why I've been intimidated to read it. But I want to read some more vampire books this next year because I tried to prioritize that in 2023, and I did read some, but I want to read some more next year. And I'm interested to see what this take on vampires looks like in the high fantasy world with like this vampire war going on. And I think there's some of the vampires that are like infected with this plague kind of, so they're really like vicious, and there's these other vampires that are trying to like take them out, and that's all I really know. And then I also want to get to this one on KU. It's called Goblin Candy by S.J. Sanders. And this is in the same series as Trick or Orc, which I read last year and really enjoyed. And this one is following a human woman and a goblin man in this like magical world. And I think it's also set around like Halloween time. And I really liked Trick or Orc because it had this really cozy fantasy like village setting. And I thought that was really cool. And they kind of talk in there about how there's goblins, but we don't really get to see them in that book, so I really want to read this one and see what it's all about. But it looks like it's going to be a spicy little novella. And I also really want to get to Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. So I read Checkmate by Ali Hazelwood this year, and I really liked it. And so I really want to read some more of her stuff because I think she's really going to be an author for me, but I just really need to like read the rest of her backlist. And a lot of people really liked Love Theoretically. This is another one that was on a lot of people's best books of the year. And I think this is another one that's in her like STEM series. So I think it's between like two people who are scientists, and that's all I really want to know about it. And I also want to get to a couple other books in another series I've been reading, and that's the Wallflower series by Lisa Kleypas. So I read books 1 and 3 in 2023, but I want to read books 2 and 4, and it doesn't really matter what like order you read them in, but I want to get to this one, It Happened One Autumn, and this one is following Marcus and Lillian. And Marcus is this really powerful man, and Lillian is a American heiress who has a lot of money, and I really want to hear about their romance because in book 1 they like absolutely hated each other's guts, and so I think this is going to be a really interesting like hate to love. And then I also want to read this one, Scandal in Spring by Lisa Kleypas. This is book 4, and this one's following Daisy, and she's the youngest one of the Wallflower girls, and she ends up having a romance with this guy named Matthew, and I have no idea who Matthew is. Who the hell is Matthew? He was not mentioned anywhere else in the series, so we'll see what happens with this, but I really want to finish out this series next year because I think I'm really, really gonna enjoy it. Also, I'm filming this in 2023, so sorry if it's confusing. You're like, this year or next year? I want to finish it in 2024. And then I also would like to get to another Lisa Kleypas, and it's called Mine Until Midnight. So this is the spin-off series to the Wallflower series, and I'm really excited about this one because we're following this guy Cam, who we saw in book 3 in Devil in Winter. He was one of the guys who worked at this like gambling club, and he's a gypsy, and he's really hot, and he has tattoos, and he's really smart. He's really good with numbers and like predicting who's going to win these gambling games, and he like oversees them and makes sure that people aren't cheating. And so he has a romance in this one, and I'm really excited to get to it because Cam is absolutely like a king, and I just really want to read his book. And so those are the historicals that I'm really excited to get to. If you haven't noticed, there's a lot of romance on this list because I started getting into romance more in 2023, and I really want to continue that trend into 2024. And so the next one I want to get to is not a romance, but it's another one that was on a lot of people's like favorite books of the year for 2023. And that's Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. So this is one that I picked up a few months ago when I was on vacation because I was reading Babel at the time and I was really enjoying it, and this was new. And so Yellowface is really different from Babel, it sounds like. So I think we're following these two women who are authors, and they're friends, and one of them passes away, and the other friend like takes her dead friend's manuscript and tries to publish it as her own work. And then I think her friend who passed away like starts to haunt her or something like that. I'm kind of going into this one blind too, and the synopsis is kind of vague, but it sounds like it's going to be interesting, and I'm kind of surprised that so many people loved this in 2023, and I figure if everybody on BookTube loves it, then it must be good, so I'm adding it to my list. And then I'd also really like to get to another one that I grabbed when I was on that same trip when I was in Arizona. I also bought The Hacienda, and this is one that I've been wanting to get to for a while. I started it in 2022, I think, and I just got busy and never got around to finishing it, and I had to return my library loan, and so I never got to read the end, but I really was enjoying the beginning when I started it. And so we're following this woman who gets into this marriage with this guy, and it's set in historical Mexico, and she marries this man, Don Rodolfo, I think, and she moves into his house in this creepy old hacienda, and she's really excited at first, and then she realizes that like the servants are kind of shady, and her sister-in-law is really also kind of like creepy and standoffish, and nobody likes being in the house, and her husband promptly like wants to leave her at the house and like go off to do his own thing right after they get married. And she's kind of like exploring the house, and it's creepy, and I think she ends up realizing that maybe there's a little bit more happening at this hacienda than she thought, and she starts hearing stories about her husband's first wife and how she passed away. And she kind of starts looking into that and looking into like the history of this house, and things kind of go from there, and it sounds really, really spooky, and I'm really excited to get to it. And then I also want to get to another one on Kindle Unlimited. So this one's called The Stone and the Star, and this is a gargoyle romance, and it's by Julian Graves, who's an author that I read from in 2022 and 2023, and I really like her stuff, and I'm really interested in monster romances. I started getting into that in 2023, and I kind of want to explore that a little bit more, and so I read her other gargoyle romance, Titan, and that one was really steamy and fun, and so I want to get to her newer novella, and this is a different gargoyle romance, but I think they might be set in the same world, and so I want to get to that. And then I also want to get to this one that I just saw when I was in the airport the other day coming back from Christmas, and it's called The Pomegranate Gates, and I don't really know anything about this, but this cover is stunning, and I started reading the beginning at the airport, and the writing style was really, really good, and I looked at the reviews on Goodreads, and it has like outstanding reviews, but I've never heard anybody talk about it on BookTube. But it's an adult high fantasy, and it has this like magical, enchanted vibe, and it has a really cool fantasy map in the cover. And that's all I really know. It has something to do with magical pomegranates and gates. I'm going into this totally blind, but I really want to get to that one in 2024 and just figure out what it's all about. And the next one I want to read is another romance, and it's called Night Secrets by Kat Martin. So this is one that I heard good things about on Instagram, and so I ordered a copy from Pango. And it's a kind of historical romance, but it's about pirates, and I really am excited about that. I really want to try and read some more pirate books in 2024 because I love pirates. I got a jar of that. I got a jar of that. But I never read any pirate books, and I never really hear that much about them. But this is one that I think is going to be really, really cool. And we're following this woman who, I think she escapes onto this ship, and she's a stowaway on this guy Marcus's pirate ship, and of course he finds her, and they're traveling to England, and she's kind of like stuck on this ship with him and all these other pirates on the high seas, and it sounds fantastic. So I'm really stoked to get to this. And then the next one I want to get to is one, hold on, I forgot to grab it off my bookshelf. As you can tell, I'm like super prepared for this whole thing. There's so many books I want to get to. It's so hard to keep track of things. Give me uno momento, por favor. Oh my god. Alright, here we go. So the next one I want to get to is called When a Scot Ties the Knot by Tessa Dare. So this is another one in a different series I've been reading. As you can tell, I like to start series and not finish them, so we're going to try to remedy that this year. But this is book 3 in her Castles Ever After series, and we're following this young woman who I imagine inherited a castle, because each one of the books in this series follows like totally different characters, but they all inherited a castle from this really wealthy man who passed away. And this one, I think, is set in Scotland, and it's about this woman who's been writing imaginary letters to this captain. His name is Captain Mackenzie, and she was kind of just like writing letters to nobody, and she didn't think he was real. She just wanted people to like think that she had a man so they'd leave her alone. And then one day this real Scottish man shows up and is like, hey, look, I got your letters. And she's like, I didn't think you were a real person. And they end up having a romance. and things kind of go from there. And it sounds like it's kind of like a fake dating thing at first, and I'm not sure if he's really the man that she was like addressing the letters to, or if he's just like a different Scottish soldier guy who got the letters, or what the deal is. But I'm really excited to get to it. I've been wanting to read some more Scottish romances this year, and it also like has the letters in here too that she wrote him, which is kind of cool. So I'm excited to get to this. And then the next book I want to get to is called The Maker of Swans by Periac O'Donnell. So this is one that's been on a bunch of my TBRs. I've been wanting to read it for ages. And I read this author's previous book, The House on Vesper Sands, and I loved it when I read it in 2022. And then this book was out of print at the time. And then in 2023, they started printing copies of it again. And I've been wanting to read it for ages. And I think it's a mystery, and it's set in England on this sprawling estate. And I think it's about this man whose master murders somebody on the front lawn, and there's all this mystery as to like who the man was who was shot and why his master killed him, and there's all these other people at the estate who are like involved in this crime. And I think the main guy is trying to figure out like what happened with this murder, why is everybody being so shady about it, like how are we going to cover it up, like what's the deal. And it kind of goes from there. And this author writes really, really incredible mystery novels, and they're always like really atmospheric and interesting and fast-paced, and I really loved his last book, and so I'm really excited to get into this. And next up, I have another series that I need to work on finishing, and that is the Murderbot Diaries series by Martha Wells. So this is a series that I started in 2022, was absolutely loving it, and then just never continued on. And so I want to go back and reread Network Effect and Exit Strategy, and then continue on with the series from there. These are about this main character named Murderbot, and he is basically this sort of like part human, part robot individual who is basically like a trained fighter, and he was originally created to like protect this certain company's projects and stuff, and then he went rogue and he like hacked his own governor module and is basically like a free agent now. And so he kind of goes around and tries to like save humans and like take out the bad humans, and he really is like antisocial, and he just wants to like hang out on the ships and like watch his little TV shows, and he ends up getting roped into all of these different like political things that are going on in this world. And he has this specific group of humans that he is like befriended, and so he's mostly trying to like protect them and look out for their best interests. But there's all these other like evil companies who are like illegally mining like alien artifacts on different planets and stuff like that, and he has to try and like go and stop them. And there's a lot of really cool like fight scenes and sci-fi elements and like interplanet space travel and politics and all these different things. But I really, really like this series, and most of the ones in the series are like really short novellas, and I really like those. I've been listening to a lot of them on audiobooks, so I want to get to these and then finish out the series. And there's still like books that are being published in the series, but I want to try and like get caught up so that way I can read like one a year like I do with the Singing Hills cycle series, because I really like doing that. And then the last couple books I have are by Nat Cassidy, so I really would like to get to Mary next year, and this is one I've been hearing really, really good things about. It's following this woman, and I think she's going through menopause, and she's having some issues, and she looks in the mirror and she feels like she can see herself like decomposing, and she's having all these weird symptoms, and she goes to the doctor and they just tell her that it's nothing, that's just menopause, whatever, and she knows something is wrong, and the story kind of goes from there. And I've heard that it's really well written. It has a lot to do with women not being taken seriously, and especially by like doctors and things like that. And then I also would like to get to Nat Cassidy's new release, Nestlings, that I just recently purchased, and this one is following a couple who moves into this like fancy high-rise Manhattan apartment because they win this like lottery deal, and they get a really good deal in this apartment. However, the wife has just recently had a baby, and during childbirth she was paralyzed, and so now she's in a wheelchair, and they have this young infant, and her husband is like, oh, this is gonna be great for us, we should totally move in. And the wife is like, you know, like, this isn't really good for me, like, it's not made for wheelchairs, I'm not going to be able to get around very good, we have this newborn baby, they're not sleeping very much, and so they move in anyways, against the wife's better judgment.
These white men are dangerous.
and then their baby starts acting really weird, and their neighbors are really creepy, and the wife has this feeling that like they're not supposed to be there, and this apartment place is very spooky, and I think things go from there. And I've heard it's horrifying but also like incredibly good. And Jordaline from Jordaline Reads said it was one of her favorite books of 2023, and if Jordaline says it's good, then I'm gonna read it. And I really am excited to get into Nat Cassidy in 2024 because I've heard incredible things about his books, and I just really want to see what all the hype is about. So those are all the books I want to read in 2024, and thank you so much for watching. If you made it to the end of this video, leave me a yellow heart emoji in the comments for Yellowface, and let me know which books you're most excited to read in 2024. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in another video very soon. Bye!